Thought I'd talk about Satori, or what is Satori. As people want to know what this thing Satori is all about. It's a glimpse of reality, a glimpse of your true nature. And it's a little hard to understand because unless you actually have a Satori or a glimpse of your true nature, you go on believing that you are a mind and a body that has a future and a past. And in Satori you get to discover that you are something much greater than the mind, something much faster, something that doesn't have problems, doesn't have fear, doesn't have anger, something that is very beautiful. And if you're lucky, you have these Satoris. People can have them for no reason at all. They can be walking on a beach, or climbing a mountain, or sitting in class. A Satori can happen at any time. It's just a glimpse. I see it a bit like an invitation, because we have the potential as human beings to live as reality all the time, to live as truth. But most human beings live as a mind that is made up of reference points based on a past projected to a future. And if we take away those reference points, which are all imaginary, then who are you really? Because if you take away your imagination, where does the I go? You can't find it anywhere. Because the I itself is imaginary. It's not real. And someone says, well, who are you? And you go, well, I'm this person that lives there. Well, what if you take away all your reference points? Who are you really? Because they're all imagined, they're not real. Yet this thing that we are is always here. It's not somewhere else. It's just that we have so many filters that we look through, we don't realize that we are everything. And that we are not separate from anything. In fact, we are one. But the ego sees itself as separate. This dream that calls itself I sees mine, you, mine, them. It sees us as separate, and it's not true. It's just an imaginary thing. It's a belief. And it's the cause of all suffering, the belief I am the body, I am the mind. As you start to realize that you're not the mind, that you are something greater, then a feeling arises in you to want to live as reality, to leave the dream behind, because the dream is one of discontentment. Because the mind has been programmed to continually want things to be different, better or less than, or more than, or something than. Always wanting. And if you examine what wanting is, it's dissatisfaction, which is a form of suffering. The other thing the mind's programmed to do is to get attached to things. So it gets attached to something, it owns something, and then it gets fearful of losing it. Once again, suffering. And this is what the mind is naturally programmed to do. Beingness, on the other hand, who we truly are, is free of all that. No suffering. Suffering is over. Matter of fact, profound contentment is in the place of suffering. When awareness becomes aware of itself, when beingness becomes aware of itself. And Satori is a glimpse of that. Awareness becoming aware of itself, beingness becoming aware of itself. And then, if the Satori is powerful enough or big enough, the mind is seen to be what it really is, just made up of a whole pile of belief systems that you didn't put in that probably aren't true. And so the process of examining the mind begins. What's real, what's not real? What belief systems are real and what aren't? if anything contracts me and brings me back to the mind and the pain of that contraction, why should I support that belief system? So we examine the belief system and dismantle it so it doesn't contract us anymore, so it can stay expanded. Because anything that contracts us is in the way of that expansion. It's in the way of reality, because it attracts awareness back to it. And we tend to live wherever our awareness is at. So if our awareness is on our mind and through our senses the world, that's where we live. If it's just on the mind and us worrying about things, well, we live as worry. If it's just on the mind and we're angry, we live as anger. If it's just on the mind and we're doing mathematics, well, we live as mathematics. If our awareness is out there, we live as out there. It's probably better out there, because at least out there it's real. Anything in your head is not real, it's all imagined. But when awareness is on itself, when awareness is aware of beingness, it is profound contentment for no reason. It's very beautiful. And so the seeker is looking to turn awareness to itself, or awareness on beingness, in a permanent way, and that is called enlightenment. So from Satori, which is a glimpse, to enlightenment, which is a continuous Satori, if you like. And if we practice putting the mind aside, out of the way, if we practice seeing through the belief systems and letting them go, we start to produce a mind that will support ongoing Satori, or enlightenment. We start to produce a mind that is equanimous, one that doesn't get contracted constantly, one that can stay still, even when chaos is happening. And that type of mind will support Satori continuously, or enlightenment. And so the subject of Satori is a very interesting one, because a lot of people have Satoris and they want more of it. They think somehow that it's going to be easy. The problem is the ego is pretty strong. The mind is pretty strong. It's a survival mechanism after all. It's designed to survive. It needs to learn to get out of the way to support Satori. It needs to learn to put itself aside, to not constantly contract and resist life, so it can support Satori. And that takes a fair bit of practice. And the more you practice, no matter what it is, the better you get it. If you don't practice, you don't get very good. It's up to you. So if all you do is practice getting upset and supporting that upset, well, you get very good at being upset. If all you do is practice resistance to life, well, that's what you get good at. If you practice surrendering, putting the mind aside, your righteousness, your belief systems aside, you get good at that. And then you can start to live as openness rather than as closedness. Because living as an ego is living as closedness. Because an ego is resistance. Without resistance, there is no ego. It's up to you. You as an I have to learn to put you aside so you can support the beauty. The beauty being our true nature, beingness itself, the awareness of beingness itself. It's up to you. Thank you for Satsang.